What if I told you that a single mistake, made by someone society overlooks as just a temporary assistant, could unlock a healing that had been locked away for 5 years? In the heart of Chicago, where glass towers pierce the morning sky, like steel prayers, Mia Sanders arrives at Hollis & Rowe Architecture 30 minutes early. Not because she's eager, but because the empty office feels safer than facing the rush of confident voices that will soon fill these halls. At 26, Mia moves through the world like someone apologizing for taking up space. Her worn leather messenger bag contains more than the usual office supplies. Hidden between manila folders and sticky notes, she carries a small notebook filled with handwritten quotes. Fragments of wisdom she collects like others collect coins, each one a small light against the darkness she's known too well. She settles at her temporary desk in the corner, the one that faces the wall rather than the impressive city view. Other assistants get the window seats, but Mia prefers the shadows. Here she can observe without being observed, can listen to the rhythm of this corporate world she still doesn't understand. Mia's story began in a hospital room 2 years ago, where fluorescent lights hummed their sterile lullaby, while her mother fought a battle she would ultimately lose. Literature degree abandoned, dreams deferred, Mia learned that sometimes life rewrites your entire narrative without asking permission. Now she works temporary positions, moving from company to company like a ghost seeking purpose. She reads voraciously in her spare time, finding solace in the words of writers who understood that pain can be transformed into something beautiful. Her notebook has become her sanctuary, filled with quotes that speak to the wounded parts of herself she's still learning to heal. Mrs. Leona, the 66-year-old document manager, notices things others miss. She sees Mia during lunch breaks, reading in the company library corner where forgotten books gather dust. She observes the way Mia's eyes light up when she discovers a particularly moving passage, how she carefully transcribes quotes with the reverence of someone preserving sacred texts. That girl doesn't write to impress, Mrs. Leona tells herself, watching Mia through the glass partition. She writes to breathe. On the 15th floor, Charles Hollis commands his empire of glass and steel with the precision of someone who's forgotten how to bend. At 51, he's built walls higher than any skyscraper his company has ever designed. His office, though filled with architectural awards and photographs of completed projects, feels hollow, like a museum dedicated to a life that stopped living 5 years ago. 5 years since the phone call that shattered everything. 5 years since Amelia's laughter stopped echoing through their home. 5 years since he locked away her books, her writings, her belief that words could heal the deepest wounds. Brian Peterson, the 29-year-old HR manager, represents everything. Mia isn't confident, aggressive, convinced that success comes to those who speak loudest. He watches Mia with the impatience of someone who mistakes introversion for incompetence. She's too slow, he tells other managers, too lost in her own world. This isn't a charity. We need people who can keep up. World building, 5 to 8 minutes, Hollis. And Rowe operates with the mechanical precision of a Swiss watch. Meetings happen on schedule, emails follow corporate templates, and everyone understands their place in the hierarchy. It's a world where efficiency trumps empathy, where being quietly competent often goes unnoticed while being loudly mediocre gets promoted. The company library sits forgotten on the 3rd floor, its shelves lined with architectural journals and forgotten donations from staff members. Among these abandoned books, Mia has discovered something remarkable, a collection of inspirational texts, including several volumes by an author named Amelia H. The books are worn, obviously loved, filled with underlined passages and margin. Notes in handwriting so elegant it looks like calligraphy. Mia doesn't know that these books belong to Charles's late wife, donated by well-meaning colleagues who thought the CEO needed to move on. She doesn't know that each quote she carefully copies into her notebook once brought comfort to a woman who believed that words could bridge any darkness. She only knows that these words speak to something deep inside her, something that recognizes the language of loss and hope intertwined. The atmosphere at Hollis & Rowe is thick with unspoken tensions. Charles's grief has infected the entire company culture, creating an environment where emotional intelligence is seen as weakness, where vulnerability is liability. Employees walk on eggshells, afraid to show too much feeling, too much humanity. Into this sterile world, Mia brings something dangerous: authenticity. Her inability to wear masks makes others uncomfortable. Her genuine responses to beauty and meaning stand out like flowers growing through concrete cracks. Monday morning arrives with the weight of impossible expectations. Mia receives her assignment from Brian's assistant: prepare the board meeting schedule and send it to all department heads, including the CEO. A simple task that somehow feels loaded with potential disaster. She works carefully, double-checking every detail, every timestamp. But as she prepares to attach the schedule file, her hands shake slightly, a residual tremor from the anxiety that never quite leaves her. In her nervousness, she clicks on the wrong document. Instead of the meeting schedule, she attaches a Word document titled Words for Dark Days, her personal collection of quotes that help her survive the harder moments. The file contains dozens of carefully transcribed passages, each one chosen for its power to transform pain into wisdom. Among them, one line stands out: "Pain is the price of a heart that dared to love fully. Amelia H." She doesn't notice the mistake until after she hits send. The corporate email system carries her vulnerability into the inboxes of 12 department heads, including Charles Hollis himself. What should have been a sterile business communication becomes an accidental window into a wounded soul's attempt at healing. Panic floods through Mia like ice water. She stares at her computer screen, watching the sent notification mock her with its finality. In a corporate world where personal and professional boundaries are sacred, she's just committed the ultimate breach, exposing her heart to people who speak only in profit margins and project deadlines. Brian discovers the mistake within the hour, his voice carrying across the office as he summons Mia to his desk. Other employees pause their work, sensing drama in the air like animals before a storm. "Do you understand what you've done?" Brian's question cuts through the office atmosphere. "You've sent personal content to the executive team. This is exactly the kind of unprofessional behavior I've been documenting." Mia stands before his desk like a defendant awaiting sentence, her cheeks burning with shame. She wants to explain about her mother, about the nights when these quotes were the only things that kept her sane, about how words have become her lifeline. But Brian's expression makes it clear that context won't save her. "I'll fix it," she whispers. "I'll send a correction email immediately." "The damage is done," Brian replies, his tone suggesting that this mistake has confirmed every doubt he's harbored about her competence. Tuesday morning brings an unexpected email in Mia's inbox. The sender's name makes her heart stop. Charles Hollis. The message is brief, almost cryptic. "The quotes you sent, where did you find them?" Mia reads the email 17 times, searching for anger that isn't there, for the termination notice she expects. Instead, she finds something that might be curiosity, though she's too terrified to trust her interpretation. Her reply is equally brief, typed with trembling fingers. "From books in the company library. I don't know the original authors of most quotes. I copy them because they help me understand difficult feelings. I'm sorry for the professional boundary violation." She doesn't expect a response. Men like Charles Hollis don't engage in philosophical discussions with temporary assistants, who make embarrassing mistakes. But an hour later, another email arrives. "Which book specifically?" This time, Mia's response is longer. She mentions the volumes she's discovered, describes the handwritten notes in the margins, admits that she's been visiting the library during lunch breaks because the words make her feel less alone. She's revealing too much, she knows. In a professional environment, this level of personal disclosure feels dangerous. But something about Charles's questions suggests genuine interest rather than interrogation. Brian watches this email exchange with growing irritation. He's already drafted Mia's termination paperwork, citing the attachment mistake as grounds for immediate dismissal. But he needs Charles's approval for any action involving direct communication with the CEO. "She's making it worse," he tells his assistant. First the unprofessional email, now she's bothering Mr. Hollis with personal Conversations, this has to stop. But Mrs. Leona, observing from her document management station, sees something different in Charles's behavior. For the first time in 5 years, she notices him leaving his office to visit the third-floor library. She watches him stand before the shelf where Amelia's books once lived, his face carrying an expression she hasn't seen since his wife's funeral. The corporate machine continues its relentless rotation, but hairline cracks are beginning to show. Mia notices Charles passing her desk more frequently, though he never stops to speak. His eyes carry a weight she recognizes, the look of someone carrying grief so heavy it changes the way they move through the world. She begins to understand that her mistake has triggered something larger than professional embarrassment. The quotes she shared weren't just words to him, they were ghosts of a conversation he thought he'd never have again. Wednesday brings a new assignment, organizing the company's quarterly charity event. Mia throws herself into the work with the desperate energy of someone trying to prove their worth. She researches venues, compares catering options, creates detailed timelines that account for every possible contingency. But as she works, she can't shake the feeling that she's borrowed time. Brian's disapproval follows her like a shadow, and she catches him in whispered conversations with other managers. Her mistake has become office gossip, discussed in break rooms and elevator rides. She's not right for this environment, she overhears one manager say. Too sensitive, too literary. This is a business, not a poetry club. The words sting because they echo her own fears. Since her mother's death, she's felt displaced everywhere she goes, like someone trying to fit into clothes that were tailored for a different person. The corporate world expects versions of herself she doesn't know how to become. During lunch, she retreats to the library sanctuary, finding comfort among the forgotten books. Today, she discovers something that stops her cold. A business card, tucked between the pages of one of Amelia's books. Amelia H., inspirational author and healing arts writer. The elegant handwriting in the margins suddenly makes sense. These aren't just anonymous wisdom quotes. They're the words of someone who understood that healing happens one sentence at a time. Mia sits in the empty library, holding the business card like a sacred relic. She realizes she's been carrying on a conversation with a ghost, finding guidance from someone who died before they ever met. The synchronicity feels too meaningful to be coincidence. Thursday morning arrives with the corporate equivalent of a natural disaster. Brian calls Mia into the conference room, his demeanor carrying the satisfaction of someone who's found the perfect excuse to solve a problem. I've been reviewing your work performance, he begins, spreading papers across the conference table, like evidence in a trial. The email incident was just the latest in a pattern of unprofessional behavior. You spend too much time reading instead of working. You write personal notes during business hours. You don't fit the culture we're trying to build here. Mia listens to the litany of accusations, each one transforming her coping mechanisms into character flaws. Her quiet nature becomes lack of initiative. Her careful work becomes slowness. Her creativity becomes distraction. Effective immediately, you're on suspension pending final review, Brian announces. Please gather your personal items and leave the building. The words hit Mia like physical blows. She's been fired from jobs before, but never with such calculated cruelty. Brian isn't just ending her employment. He's attacking the core of who she is. She packs her few belongings in silence, aware that other employees are watching from their cubicles. Her notebook of quotes goes into her bag last, its worn edges a testament to how much these words have sustained her. As she prepares to leave, Mrs. Leona approaches with the gentleness of someone who understands loss. You forgot this, she says, handing Mia a copy of one of Amelia's books. I thought you might want to keep it. Mia accepts the book gratefully, not knowing that Mrs. Leona has been documenting her daily library visits, photographing the pages of quotes Mia has been transcribing. She doesn't know that Mrs. Leona has been preparing for this moment, waiting for the right time to reveal what she's discovered. That evening, Mrs. Leona makes a decision that will change everything. She compiles her photographs of Mia's notebook pages into a digital folder, creating a visual testament to the young woman's dedication to finding meaning in suffering. The images tell a story. Dozens of quotes carefully transcribed, each one chosen for its power to transform pain into wisdom. Many are from Amelia's books, but Mia has added her own reflections, creating a dialogue between past and present, between a woman who wrote about healing and another woman desperately seeking it. Mrs. Leona drafts an email to Charles, attaching the folder with a message that carries the weight of 5 years of watching him hide from his own heart. Mr. Hollis, I believe you need to see this. The young woman who was suspended today has been carrying on a conversation with Amelia through her words. She doesn't know who Amelia was, but she's been living the healing philosophy your wife believed in. I think Amelia would want you to see how her words have been helping someone find light in their darkness. This girl doesn't just read to escape. She reads to become the person she needs to be. Isn't that what Amelia always said literature was for? She sends the email at 11:47 p.m., knowing that Charles often works late, using exhaustion to avoid the loneliness of going home to an empty house. The email arrives in Charles's inbox like a message from beyond. He opens the attachment with hands that shake slightly, unprepared for what he's about to see. Page after page of his wife's words, transcribed with the reverence of someone who understands their sacred nature. But more than that, he sees Mia's own notes, her responses to Amelia's philosophy, her attempts to apply these principles to her own journey through grief. It's like watching someone learn to breathe using the same oxygen that once sustained the woman he loved most. For the first time in 5 years, Charles allows himself to remember Amelia not as the woman he lost, but as the writer who believed that words could heal any wound, that stories could transform the most broken hearts. He sits in his home office until dawn, reading through every image, watching a conversation unfold between his dead wife and a living woman who needed exactly what Amelia had to offer. Friday morning at Hollis & Rowe begins with the efficiency of a machine that has ejected its broken parts. Mia's desk sits empty, cleared of the personal touches that made it feel lived in. Her small, succulent plant has been moved to the lost and found box, along with her worn coffee mug that carried the faint inscription, "Words Heal," a gift from her late mother. Brian moves through the office with the satisfaction of someone who has solved a problem, fielding congratulations from managers who appreciate his decisive action. He's already scheduled interviews with 3 potential replacements, all of whom demonstrate the professional dynamism he believes the position requires. It was the right call, he tells anyone who will listen. She was never going to fit here. Too emotional, too distracted by her little reading hobby. We need people who understand that business is business, not some kind of literary therapy session. The other employees watch this celebration with mixed feelings. Some nod in agreement, relieved that the office dynamic will return to its familiar, if sterile, efficiency. Others feel a strange emptiness, where Mia's quiet presence used to provide unexpected moments of warmth and insight. But 20 floors above the corporate celebrations, Charles hasn't slept. He spent the night in his home office, surrounded by Amelia's books he hasn't opened since her funeral 5 years ago. The photographs Mrs. Leona sent have unlocked something he thought was permanently sealed, the memory of why he fell in love with a woman who believed that words could heal the world. The home office exists in a state of preserved time. Amelia's reading glasses still rest on the small table beside her favorite chair. Her fountain pen lies across an open notebook, as if she just stepped away and might return at any moment. The morning light streams through windows she used to sit beside, writing her thoughts about how literature could serve as medicine for wounded souls. Amelia's desk remains exactly as she left it, with a half-finished manuscript titled Letters to Tomorrow, Finding Light in Life's Darkest Chapters. For 5 years, Charles has avoided this room, unable to face the incomplete dreams it represents. The manuscript sits in a neat stack, held together by a rubber band that has grown brittle with age. Now, with dawn light streaming through the windows, he opens the manuscript for the first time since her death. The pages are filled with Amelia's elegant handwriting, her thoughts flowing across the paper like water, finding its natural course. Her words speak of pain as the price of love, of healing as a journey rather than a destination, of the sacred responsibility writers have to those who need their words most. On page 37, he finds an underlined passage that stops his heart. The deepest healing often comes through unexpected messengers, people who carry our words forward without knowing they're fulfilling our deepest purpose. Sometimes the most profound connections happen between souls who never meet in this lifetime, but whose spirits recognize each other across time and space. Below this, in Amelia's careful script, she had added, "Charles, if you're reading this, after I'm gone, remember that love doesn't end with death. It transforms into service. Find the people who need these words and help them carry the light forward." It's as if Amelia knew that someday, someone like Mia would need exactly what she had to offer, and that Charles would need to be reminded of his purpose in facilitating that connection. He sits in her chair, feeling her presence more strongly than he has since the day she died. The weight of 5 years of avoidance settles on his shoulders, along with the recognition that he has been living only half a life, surviving rather than serving the vision they once shared. Charles arrives at the office with the determined energy of someone who has remembered his own humanity. The familiar corporate environment feels different now, not like a fortress protecting him from emotion, but like a prison preventing him from fulfilling his true purpose. He calls Mrs. Leona to his office first, needing to understand the full scope of what she's shown him. When she enters, carrying the careful dignity that has made her the office's unofficial keeper of institutional memory, he sees her not just as an employee, but as the guardian angel who has been watching over both, him and Mia, without either of them realizing it. "Mrs. Leona, I need to understand something. How long has Mia been reading Amelia's books?" 3 months, she replies, settling into the chair across from his desk. Every lunch break, every quiet moment when others thought she was wasting time. She doesn't just read them, she studies them like textbooks for living. I've watched her copy passages with the same reverence most people reserve for sacred texts. And the quote she's been copying into her notebook, not copying, absorbing. She writes reflections next to each one, like she's having conversations with the authors. Your wife's words have been helping her survive something difficult. I recognize the look in her eyes. It's the same look Amelia had when she was working, through her own mother's death years ago. Charles feels a shock of recognition. He had forgotten that Amelia's journey into healing literature began with her own experience of loss, her own need to find words that could make sense of grief. She writes her own responses to Amelia's ideas, pages of them, insights that would make any therapist proud. That girl has been doing the work Amelia always hoped her readers would do, not just consuming the words, but engaging with them, growing through them, becoming the kind of person who could help others do the same. Charles stands at his office window, looking out at the city where Mia is probably searching for another temporary job, another place to hide her sensitivity in a world that treats it like weakness. The irony hits him like a physical blow. They fired the one person who was actually living out his wife's vision. "Brian fired her yesterday," he says, the words carrying the weight of recognition that a terrible mistake has been made. "I know. And I think you know it was wrong. Not just professionally wrong, spiritually wrong. That girl was meant to be here, Charles, not as punishment but as gift." The conversation hangs in the air between them, loaded with implications neither is ready to voice. Charles is realizing that in losing Mia, the company has lost something more valuable than efficiency. They've lost someone who understands that work can be meaningful, that even corporate environments can nurture the human spirit rather than crush it. Mrs. Leona continues, her voice gentle but insistent. "Amelia used to say that wounded healers make the best healers because they understand pain from the inside. Mia is a wounded healer, Charles. She's been healing herself through Amelia's words, and she could help others do the same if we gave her the chance." "What would Amelia do?" he asks, though he already knows the answer. She'd find a way to help. She always did. She'd see this as an opportunity to prove that business and compassion aren't opposites but partners. She'd ask you to be brave enough to trust that the heart and the bottom line can work together. Charles spends the next hour making phone calls, using his influence to track down Mia's contact information. The temp agency provides her number reluctantly, confused by a CEO's personal interest in a terminated employee. He learns she's staying with a friend across town, looking for work while trying to process the shame of being fired for being too much herself. The phone call, when it finally happens, carries the weight of possibility neither of them fully understands yet. When he finally reaches her, her voice carries the hollow quality of someone who has been rejected by a world they were never sure they belonged in. "Mia, this is Charles Hollis. I know this must be confusing, but I'd like you to come in Monday morning. Not to apologize for what happened, to talk about something important, something I think could change both of our lives." Monday morning finds Mia standing outside the Hollis and Rowe building, her reflection caught in the glass doors like a ghost seeking permission to re-enter the world of the living. She's worn her best professional outfit, a navy blazer her mother bought her for job interviews, now carrying the bittersweet weight of memory alongside hope. The security guard recognizes her and waves her through with sympathetic confusion. The elevator ride to the 15th floor feels eternal, each floor marking another moment for anxiety to build. She's prepared for formal termination paperwork, for the kind of bureaucratic closure that allows companies to move forward without loose ends. But something in Charles's voice during their brief phone conversation suggested this meeting might be different. There was a quality she couldn't identify, not anger or disappointment, but something that might have been urgency or even excitement. Charles's assistant, Margaret, greets her with unexpected warmth, guiding her not to the conference room where Brian delivered his verdict, but to Charles's private office, a space she's never seen filled with architectural models and photographs of buildings that reach toward the sky like frozen prayers. The office reveals aspects of Charles that his public persona keeps hidden. Family photographs show a younger, lighter version of himself with a woman whose smile radiates warmth. Bookshelves contain not just business publications, but volumes of poetry, philosophy, and literature. A small framed quote on his desk reads, "Architecture shapes space, but words shape souls, A.H." Charles stands when she enters, and for the first time Mia sees him not as an intimidating executive, but as a man carrying weight she recognizes. Grief has carved similar lines in both their faces, creating a recognition that transcends corporate hierarchy. His eyes hold the same quality hers have carried since her mother's death, the look of someone who has learned that life can change, completely in a single moment. "Please sit," he says, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I want to show you something that I think will help explain why I asked you here." He opens a manila folder containing printed copies of all the photographs Mrs. Leona took, pages from Mia's notebook, her careful transcriptions, her personal reflections on quotes that have kept her afloat. Seeing her private thoughts displayed in this formal setting should feel like violation, but instead it feels like validation. "These are beautiful," he says simply, his voice carrying emotion he's clearly struggling to control. "And they're not just beautiful, they're necessary." Someone needed to carry these words forward, and you've been doing it without knowing how important it is. Mia stares at the images of her own handwriting, feeling exposed and validated simultaneously. The careful script she uses for her most precious thoughts, the way she arranges quotes on the page like poetry, the personal reflections that reveal her inner landscape, all of it spread before a man she barely knows but who seems to understand its value. "I don't understand," she whispers. Charles takes a deep breath, preparing to share something he's kept locked away for 5 years. "The quotes you've been copying, the books you've been reading in our library, they're from my wife's collection. Amelia died 5 years ago and I thought her words died with her. But you've been keeping them alive, using them exactly as she intended, as medicine for wounded hearts." The revelation hits Mia like a wave of understanding. The elegant handwriting in the margins, the profound insights about healing through literature, the sense that these words were written by someone who had walked through darkness and found light. It all makes sense now. "I'm sorry," she whispers, tears forming in her eyes. "I didn't know they were personal to you. I would never have—" "Don't apologize, thank you. You've been doing something I couldn't do. You've been living Amelia's philosophy while I've been running from it. You've been proving that her vision works, that words really can heal, that literature can be medicine." He reaches for another folder, this one thicker, more worn. "I want to show you something else, something I haven't looked at in 5 years, but your notebook gave me the courage to open again." What happens next unfolds like a conversation between past and present, between a woman who believed in the healing power of words and a man who had forgotten that belief was his wife's greatest gift to him. Charles opens his desk drawer and removes a bound manuscript, pages yellowed with age, edges soft from handling. The cover bears a title written in the same elegant script Mia has seen in the margins of Amelia's books, Letters to Tomorrow, Finding Light in Life's Darkest Chapters. This is Amelia's final project. She was working on it when she died. It's a book for people who are trying to heal from loss, who need words to help them find their way back to hope. He places the manuscript on the desk between them with the reverence of someone handling a sacred relic. She never finished it. I couldn't bear to read it after she died, couldn't imagine completing something that felt so much like her. But your notebook, seeing how you engage with her words, it made me realize I was dishonoring her memory by keeping this locked away. Mia reaches out tentatively, her fingers tracing the elegant script on the title page. The paper feels alive, under her touch, carrying the energy of dreams interrupted but not destroyed. It's beautiful, she breathes. She would have loved knowing that her earlier books helped someone like you. She always said that writers don't really die as long as their words continue helping people live. Charles opens the manuscript and reads passages aloud, his voice growing stronger as he reconnects with Amelia's wisdom. The words speak of grief as love with nowhere to go, of healing as a spiral rather than a straight line, of the sacred duty to transform pain into purpose. As he reads, Mia responds with insights that prove she's not just a reader, but a true student of the healing arts. She offers observations about how certain phrases could reach different types of grief, how the progression of ideas mirrors the actual journey through loss, how Amelia's voice carries both authority and humility. She writes like someone who's been there, Mia says, not like someone studying grief from the outside, but like someone who's walked through the valley and come out knowing the geography of darkness. Charles feels his heart open in recognition. She was. Her mother died when she was your age. That's what started her journey into healing literature. He shows her Amelia's research notes, pages of observations about how different people process grief, how words can bridge the gap between suffering and meaning. Mia's own notebook contains similar observations, proof that she's been walking the same path Amelia once traveled. Look at this, he says, pointing to one of Amelia's notes. She wrote about how healing happens in the space between reading someone else's words and finding your own. That's exactly what you've been doing. Mia stares at the parallel between her notebook and Amelia's research. I never thought of it that way. I just knew that copying the quotes wasn't enough. I had to figure out what they meant for my life specifically. That's the work right there. That's what Amelia hoped every reader would do. Not just consume her words passively, but use them as starting points for their own healing journey. Charles reveals that Amelia always dreamed of creating a foundation that would use literature as therapy for people experiencing loss. The incomplete manuscript was intended as the Foundation's cornerstone resource, accompanied by workshops and support groups that would help people develop their own healing practices through writing and reading. She had it all planned out, he says, pulling out folders filled with detailed proposals, training programs for facilitators, partnerships with hospitals and grief centers, even a certification process for literature-based healing practitioners. But when she died, I couldn't bear to continue something that felt so much like her. Mia studies the proposals with growing excitement. This could help so many people. The way she's designed it, it's not just about reading passively, it's about engaging actively, creating your own healing through interaction with text. Exactly. She used to say that the best therapy happens when people become co-authors of their own healing story. He proposes something that surprises them both. Would you consider helping me finish her work? Not as an employee reporting to me, but as a true collaborator. You understand her vision in a way I've forgotten how to, and I have the resources to make it real. The offer hangs in the air between them, carrying implications neither fully understands yet. This isn't just about completing a manuscript, it's about creating a new model for how literature can serve as medicine in a world hungry for authentic healing. I don't know if I'm qualified, Mia says, though her eyes are already bright with possibility. Qualification isn't about degrees or credentials. It's about calling. You've been living this work for months without knowing it. You've been proving that Amelia's theories actually work. Mia accepts, not just the offer, but the recognition that her sensitivity, the quality that made her unemployable in Brian's corporate world, is exactly what this project needs. Her mistake with the email wasn't a mistake at all, but the universe's way of bringing together the resources and the calling that could honor Amelia's vision. Yes, she says, her voice carrying conviction she hasn't felt since before her mother's illness. Yes, I want to help finish what she started. The moment feels like a door opening between worlds, between past and present, between grief and purpose, between a woman who dreamed of healing and a woman who needed to be healed. What follows is not a traditional job offer, but something far more meaningful. A partnership built on shared understanding of how words can transform suffering into wisdom, how broken hearts can become instruments of healing for other broken hearts. Charles doesn't just reinstate Mia's position at the company. He transforms her role into something unprecedented. Director of Literary Wellness Initiatives. Her job becomes creating programs that integrate Amelia's healing philosophy into the corporate environment, demonstrating that business success and emotional intelligence aren't mutually exclusive, but mutually enhancing. The announcement sends shockwaves through Hollis and Rowe. Brian's reaction is predictably negative, but Charles's authority makes objection impossible. More importantly, other employees begin responding to Mia's presence differently. When she shares brief inspirational passages during team meetings, when she creates quiet spaces for reflection during stressful project periods, productivity increases rather than decreases. The transformation isn't immediate, but it's profound. Mia begins facilitating monthly words and wellness sessions where employees can share literature that has helped them through difficult times. The sessions become so popular that other companies request similar programs, and Hollis and Rowe finds itself leading an industry trend toward more humane workplace cultures. Charles finds himself changing too. Working on Amelia's manuscript forces him to engage with grief as transformation rather than just loss. He begins sleeping better, eating meals instead of surviving on coffee, remembering that healing is possible without betraying the memory of love. The man who has been sleepwalking through 5 years of existence slowly awakens to the possibility of living again. The manuscript grows under their combined efforts. Mia's contemporary voice blends with Amelia's timeless wisdom, creating something neither could have achieved alone. They're not just completing a book. They're proving that connections can transcend time, that the right words can reach across death itself to continue healing hearts. Working together reveals the depth of their shared understanding. Charles brings decades of business experience and the intimate knowledge of Amelia's vision. Mia brings fresh perspective and the authentic voice of someone actively engaged in healing work. Together, they're creating something that honors the past while serving the present. 3 months after her firing, Mia receives a letter from a reader who discovered one of Amelia's books through their literary wellness program. The reader writes, "These words saved my life during my darkest moment. Please thank whoever is carrying this work forward. They're doing holy work." The letter becomes the manuscript's dedication for all the wounded healers who carry light for others while finding their own way home, and for those who have the courage to trust that their deepest wounds might become their greatest gifts. Charles frames the letter and hangs it in their shared workspace, a converted conference room that has become part library, part writing retreat, part healing sanctuary. The space represents everything their partnership has created, a place where business, purpose and human purpose merge into something larger than either could accomplish alone. 6 months after the wrong email that changed everything, Hollis and Rowe has become a different company. The sterile corporate environment has been infused with something revolutionary, the recognition that emotional wellness and professional success are not opposites but partners. Mia's literary wellness programs have expanded beyond monthly meetings to become integrated into the company's daily culture. Conference rooms now contain carefully selected books alongside technical manuals. Break rooms feature quote boards, where employees share wisdom that has helped them navigate challenges. The company library, once forgotten, has become a bustling center of learning and reflection. The most profound change is in Charles himself. Colleagues who have known him for decades comment on his transformation, how he listens more deeply in meetings, how he asks about employees' well-being alongside their project updates, how he's become someone who leads with empathy rather than just efficiency. The manuscript nears completion, a testament to what becomes possible when grief is transformed into service. Letters to Tomorrow will be published through the Amelia Hollis Foundation for Literary Healing, with proceeds funding similar programs in workplaces nationwide. But the deepest satisfaction comes from smaller moments. Emails from employees thanking Mia for helping them find words for their own struggles. Partnerships with local hospitals to bring literary therapy to patients. Recognition that their work is creating ripples far beyond corporate walls. Brian, confronted with the undeniable success of Mia's programs, gradually shifts from opponent to grudging supporter. The metrics he values, productivity, employee satisfaction, retention rates, all improve dramatically after Mia's initiatives take root. "I was wrong about her," he admits to Mrs. Leona during a rare moment of vulnerability. "I thought sensitivity was weakness. I didn't understand it could be strength." Mrs. Leona smiles with the satisfaction of someone who has watched justice unfold slowly but surely. Amelia always said that healing work looks inefficient until you see its results. Then, you realize it's the most practical thing in the world. Mia's office, once a corner desk facing the wall, has been relocated to a bright space with windows overlooking the city. The walls are lined with books, some from Amelia's collection, others donated by employees who have discovered the power of literary healing. Her daily routine has transformed from hiding in shadows to stepping into light. She leads morning meditation sessions using poetry, facilitates grief support groups for employees dealing with loss, and consults with other companies seeking to integrate wellness programs into their corporate culture. The temp agency that originally placed her at Hollis and Rowe calls to offer other positions, confused by her decision to stay. "You could make more money elsewhere," they tell her, but Mia has learned that meaningful work isn't measured in salary figures. It's measured in lives touched, hearts healed, words that find their way to people who need them most. Charles often stops by her office, not with assignments but with discoveries, passages from Amelia's journals that align with Mia's insights, readers' letters responding to their published articles about workplace wellness, invitations to speak at conferences about the business case for emotional intelligence. Their collaboration has evolved into genuine friendship, built on shared commitment to Amelia's vision. They're proof that healing partnerships can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances, that sometimes the people we need most arrive through our mistakes rather than our plans. The first annual Literary Healing Conference takes place in Hollis and Rowe's main conference center, drawing participants from across the country. Mia stands at the podium where she once expected to receive termination papers, now addressing an audience of corporate leaders, therapists, writers, and healing professionals. "A year ago, I sent the wrong email," she begins, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who has found their calling. "I thought it was the worst mistake of my professional life. Instead, it became the beginning of understanding what professional life could be, not just about productivity, but about purpose." She shares the story of discovering Amelia's books, of finding healing through words written by someone she would never meet, of learning that sensitivity in a harsh world isn't liability, but gift. Charles introduces the Amelia Hollis Foundation, announcing partnerships with major corporations to implement literary wellness programs nationwide. The foundation will train facilitators, distribute resources, and research the connection between emotional intelligence and workplace success. But the most meaningful moment comes when Mrs. Leona takes the stage to read from Letters to Tomorrow, her voice carrying Amelia's words to an audience hungry for healing. "To those who feel too much in a world that values too little, your sensitivity is not a flaw to be fixed, but a gift to be shared. The world needs your tender heart, your deep thoughts, your ability to find meaning in places others see only emptiness." The manuscript's publication becomes a bestseller, not because of marketing campaigns, but because of authentic word-of-mouth recommendations from readers whose lives have been transformed by its message. 2 years after the wrong email, Mia receives an invitation that brings her journey full circle. The University of Chicago's literature department wants her to speak about the healing power of words in professional environments as part of their career development series. Standing before an audience of literature students, many struggling with the same questions about how to make their sensitivity valuable in a practical world, Mia sees herself as she was before that transformative mistake. "They'll tell you that literature is impractical," she begins, "that caring deeply is professional liability, that your ability to find meaning in words won't translate to meaningful work." She pauses, looking out at faces that mirror her own former uncertainty. They're wrong. The world doesn't need fewer people who feel deeply, it needs more. It needs people who understand that businesses are collections of human hearts, that productivity flows from people who feel valued, that the most practical thing any organization can do is remember that spreadsheets don't dream, don't grieve, don't hope, but the people creating them do. She shares the story of Amelia's books, of Charles's transformation, of a company that discovered that caring for souls could coexist with caring for bottom lines. She talks about the hundreds of letters they've received from people whose workplaces have been transformed by literary wellness programs. But mostly she talks about the power of mistakes, how the worst email she ever sent became the best thing that ever happened to her. Sometimes the wrong path leads to the right destination, she concludes. Sometimes the mistake you're most ashamed of becomes the gift the world needed you to give. The standing ovation that follows isn't just applause. It's recognition, validation, for everyone who has ever felt too sensitive for the world's harshness. The final scene returns to where it all began, the empty office early in the morning, but now it's Mia who arrives first, not to hide, but to prepare. Her notebook still accompanies her, but now it's filled with quotes from readers who have found healing through programs she's helped create. Charles joins her, as has become their custom, for morning coffee and manuscript review. Letters to. Tomorrow has spawned 3 sequels, a training curriculum, and a movement that's changing how organizations think about human potential. But today they're working on something new, a memoir about their unlikely partnership, tentatively titled The Wrong Email, How a Mistake Became a Miracle. Amelia would love this, Charles says, reading over Mia's latest chapter. She'd love that her words are still healing people, Mia replies. That's all she ever wanted, for literature to serve as medicine. Through the office windows, Chicago awakens to another day. In conference rooms across the city, employees begin meetings not just with agenda reviews, but with brief moments of reflection, quotes that center hearts before addressing business. The ripple effects of one woman's sensitivity, preserved through another woman's words, and activated by a man's willingness to transform grief into service, continue expanding. The final image shows Mia's original notebook, now kept in a place of honor on her bookshelf. Its pages contain the quotes that saved her life, proof that words can reach across time and space to offer exactly the healing wounded hearts need most.